Welcome to Sleepless in St. Canard, where nostalgia replaces REM cycles. I'm Kitty,
And I'm Ange.
and we haven't slept.
In 30 years.
This is a podcast about the 90s classic cartoon Darkwing Duck, where time keeps on slipping into the turtle. AKA, we are back, and telling me about the literal comic misadventures of the Boom Studio run of Darkwing Comics. What's on the menu today, Ange? How many tiny ties are in it? How many tentacled duck people are in it? How many hearts will be broken? How long can we keep going like this?
So many good questions, and I don't even know if I have an answer for you, except for the last one. There's a lot of broken hearts, especially Quacker Jacks.
Oh, torn into tiny little pieces.
Today, we're covering the annual, which is, I didn't know what annuals were. I had never heard of them before this, but it's like a special edition comic that gets released once a year that has like an extra longer story or two in it. Have you heard of them before?
I have not. I'm also not like a huge comic person, so don't be too surprised.
Yeah, like I don't know if this is like super common in the comic book industry, but that's basically what this was. It was written, it is not in continuation with the current stuff that we've covered. We've covered Duck Knight Return, Crisis on Infinite Darkwings, and Foul Disposition. And I think timeline-wise, this was released actually during the Foul Disposition arc, just before issue 10 was released. So I think it takes place either before or after Foul Disposition, but it doesn't really matter because it's not related at all.
Okay.
And there's two stories. I wasn't sure if we could split it up into two episodes because every time I do a comic episode, I fly way too close to the sun and it ends up being 3 hours long, and then I have to post-edit it and put in like a thing at the end that's just me saying that it's too long and then head into the next one. But
an alarmingly calm Ange after all the ranting, being like, hey, we had to split this up for everyone's sanity.
Oh my god. Yeah, my sanity. Whatever is left of it. But thing is that it would be very unbalanced because Toy With Me was 24 pages long, and then The Untimely Terror of the Time Turtle is only 8 pages long. So I feel like there'd be next to nothing.
It's uneven.
It's uneven. One episode would be longer and the other would be really short, probably. So I think we should just, whatever may come, whatever may be, that's what we're walking into here.
We're doing it. And while you're talking, I'm just going to draw my own representation of the time turtle because
I would like to know what you think of the time turtle.
He's going to be like Flava Flav, but a tiny little turtle.
I will give you a little bit of information about the stories. Toy With Me was written exclusively by Ian Brill, and it was drawn by Sabrina Alberghetti.
Okay.
I think this is the only issue that was drawn by a different artist, and that's because The Untimely Terror of the Time Turtle was written by none other than Tad Stones.
Oh!
Yeah, and it was drawn by James Silvani. So James did one part of the annual, and Sabrina did the other part.
Oh, so that's fancy. So James got to work with the man, the myth, the legend.
Indeed.
To my darling, the time turtle.
And I'm going to start with Toy With Me because I guess chronologically when you read the annual, it's the first story, but also it kind of ends on a downer, and the time turtle is a little more uplifting and fun, so I want to end on a happier note.
Okay. Works for me.
Do you know anything about the Toy With Me? Because I'm sure you've probably heard stuff over the years from the fandom talking about this particular story.
I know that there is a girl in it that people seem to like or hate. And she's got red hair. And she is Quacker Jack's girlfriend.
But
sorry, yeah, spoilers.
We'll get there, but you're correct.
Okay.
And you basically covered like what were probably the most controversial points of the story.
Quacker Jack fucks. And until he doesn't.
Oh god. Yeah.
That's a comic guy early for you, Ange. Get it out of the way.
Oh my god. It's just, I will say the art style for Toy With Me, I really like it. It is very adorable, and it really suits the Darkwing Duck, I don't know, genre, personality.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'll have to send you a few pictures later of some of the panels, because I don't know. I like Sabrina's style overall. She's drawn like a Darkwing Duck fan art in the past, and it always looks fantastic. So very nice visuals. But the story itself is basically, like you said, when it comes to like one of the characters, people either seem to really like the story or they seem to really hate it. So
I wonder where I will fall.
wonder away. Okay. We'll get started. So this story basically follows Quackerjack and a bit of his time at Quackworks back when the Duck Knight Returns was going on, and it was before that the events, or it does a flashback to what happened leading up to this point. So the cover for the annual is a parody of The Killing Joke, you know, when the Joker is holding up a camera.
With the camera.
I gotta say, that is a pretty dark parody to do.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's kind of a deep one.
And it's Darkwing Duck's reflection in the camera lens. I don't know what the implication is there, but just what I know of The Killing Joke, or learning about The Killing Joke actually after I read this comic, I was like, oh.
Oh, yeah. It's not a great one for Barbara.
No. And then there's a second cover, which is just Darkwing Duck in the similar style as the Killing Joke cover. And then it's followed by the most bizarre piece of artwork that Tad Stones that I have seen him draw. And it's just a one-page spread of the Fearsome Five and Darkwing and Launchpad and Goslin, but it's kind of like one of those children spot the what's wrong with it.
Okay.
For example, Quackerjack, you know, the two bells on his hat. One of them is a hamster and a ball, and the other is a bell.
Okay.
Bushroot has money for hair and money for hands. Negaduck has eyes on his hat.
Oh boy.
There's a squid inside the liquidator.
I made a friend.
And the squid looks like it's strangling something. I think it might be a boat or another creature of some sort.
Is he big? Like, is this a big squid, or is this just like a squid taking out its wrath on some bath toys?
It might be a bath toy, actually, now that you mention it. It's small. It's a small squid. Small enough to fit inside the regular-sized liquidator.
Oh, a little scamp.
And Megavol is standing in the liquidator, bathing himself, and he's not wearing shoes, and we get a shot of his human feet.
What? No. I was okay with all of that up until that very last part. So Megavolt is bathing in the liquidator with his gnarly human feet. And Tad drew this?
Yes. But wait, there's more.
Oh no, I don't.
Oh yeah, Negaduck's wearing a bow tie. It's not a tiny bow tie, but it is a bow tie.
Well, bow ties are kind of tiny, unless it's like one of those big clown ones.
It's like a regular black bow tie.
Oh, classy. Okay.
Also, the blackbirds from Dumbo appear to be nesting in Bushroot's butt. I don't know if it's his butt per se. It's like a nest that's like right at his waist level.
Oh.
Oh, and Quackerjack is a spring, and he's in a potted, soiled thing. What do you call it? A plant pot?
Yeah. We'll say that. So, okay. All right. No questions. No comments.
Goslin's pigtails are.
You're still. How big is this thing?
It's just got a. It's like almost like a Where's Waldo. It just has a bunch of them in there at once. And Goslin's pigtails are brooms. She's firing off a plunger made out of a pencil and a comb. Darkwing Duck is wearing briefs, as in the underwear.
Okay.
Launchpad is wearing, what are those shoes? No, you don't, because I'm being too vague. Converse shoes.
Crocs.
He's wearing
Oh,
Converse
okay.
shoes. And he's got a life preserver
I would
around
like
his neck.
to see Launchpad wearing Crocs.
But then you'd have to see his real feet. Oh wait, I guess we
His
kind of
human
see
feet.
I guess we see his feet regularly, don't we?
Yeah, it's basically he just has boots shaped like his feet. Who's to say they're not just mud?
And also Goslin's wearing socks with sandals.
Oh, okay. That's a lot going on here.
There's a lot more, but I won't get into it all because it's too much for something that we haven't even started the actual story yet. So, okay. Toy with me. Our story begins in some sort of work office. And there's a shot of a kitchen table with some Wiffle Boy merchandise on it and some Wiffle Boy trophies. It turns out that this seems to be the work office of a chicken rooster man named Mr. Mandelbaum. I'm not sure if that's like a reference to anything in particular. I Googled it and all I got was Seinfeld and like a character on Seinfeld, so.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. I have no idea. But he's talking to someone who is very obviously Quackerjack in a trench coat wearing glasses. And
does he still have like the jester hat on?
I think it's directly underneath his hat that he's wearing. It's like the trench coat that Negaduck was wearing in Let's Get Respectable, essentially.
Okay. I didn't know if we were doing like naked Quackerjack with his weird little tuft of hair thing.
Oh, okay. He's bald.
Oh, he is? Okay. I guess I was just being kind. Give him a little tuft of hair.
Or you were just too traumatized from seeing him bald and your memory just had to write over it.
As happens quite often.
So, Mr. Mandelbaum is talking to him and he says, "It does me good to take this old thing out to tinker around with. Thanks for suggesting I do. What's your name again?" And he's pulled out, I don't know if you remember Quackerjack's debut episode, which was Wiffle While You Work.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a ray in it called the Molecular Digitizer, and that was what hit Darkwing, and then he got sent into the Wiffle Boy game.
Yep. That was a beautiful bonding episode between Goslin and Drake, where Drake treated her very well and respected her.
I can't wait to talk about that episode when it crops up. But yeah, so he's pulled it out. He's the creator of the Molecular Digitizer. So Quackerjack says, "I'm Jack. I remember you visiting the Quackworks toy department to do some consulting work, Mr. Mandelbaum. The Wiffle Boy people may not see any need for the Molecular Digitizer anymore, but I think the ability to transport matter into video games is still amazing." Roosterman says, "You can call me Aloysius."
Oh, Aloysius.
I noticed that when Ian Brill writes the stories, the names aren't really like Duckverse related. Like, you know how usually when there's a pop culture reference, they take it and they turn it into a duck related pun?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really do that. They're references, but they're not really, I don't know, they don't quite fit. He says, "All the things I did for them, what I gave them. We conquered the competition because we dreamed of what they never could. This baby saved a bundle on programming costs. We could move at a speed no one else possibly could. Then things moved too fast. They got rid of me. No need for an old inventor anymore. Now they're raking in the millions with World of Wifflecraft, where anybody who plays gets to be Wiffle Boy." And then Quackerjack with his little glasses and trench coat is putting a supportive hand on his shoulder and looking concerned. And then immediately shoves him over on the ground and starts beating him up.
There we go.
And then he rips off his disguise and shoots him with the Molecular Digitizer and says,
Oh, no.
And he says, "Oh, there will be changes, all right. Big changes for you." And then the guy gets shot and goes, "No! What's happening to me?" And he turns into a toy doll.
That's from the digitizer?
Yeah, because Quackerjack basically convinced this guy to bring it out and then work on it and I guess change some stuff around and then was like, haha, it was all a trick.
Okay. All right. All right.
And then he whips out his new Mr. Banana Brain, which is not the same one from The Duck Knight Returns that was like full of hate and wires. This is this is like Banana Brain 3.0, and he is very sharp and spiky. And I feel like this was meant to be a metaphor that this isn't your regular kids comic anymore. Everything is edgy. Get it?
Is this one made of metal too?
Yes.
Okay. Like, they're not a very good source of iron, though.
Womp womp.
Yeah.
So Quackerjack says to him, but his invention is exactly the thing we need to introduce to the new Quackerjack brand toys, right, new Mr. Banana Brain? And then he says, in what I assume is Banana Brain's voice because the text is yellow, says, with over 12 million subscribers, we'll have the market all to ourselves. Because in present-day St. Canard, the rage now is World of Wifflecraft, which is an online MMO where everybody goes on and, I guess, plays Wifflecraft.
Okay. So I would just like to say, I feel like this Banana Brain should be Junior, Mr. Banana Brain Jr., instead of new Mr. Banana Brain. And yeah, that's my big contribution right now.
I'd like to hear
Continue.
your reasoning on this.
Because it's more fun, and new Mr. Banana Brain just makes it seem like Mr. Banana Brain is replaceable, which I don't think he would have been for Quackerjack, personally. That would be an easier coping mechanism to just believe that they were descendants of the original Banana Brain. So there was the Metal Terminator one and the second one, so maybe he would have been Junior. This could be the third, Mr. Banana Brain the third.
I like it.
Yeah, thank you. A TED Talk. Not a TED Talk.
A legend foretold. Okay, so Quackerjack puts down the Mr. Mandelbaum doll on the table and he says, everyone addicted to their precious video games will be in for a real surprise. They won't know what to think, that is, if they can even think when I'm finished playing. Ha 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 ha, evil laughter. He's up to no good.
I know we don't know his plan yet, but I'm just gonna spitball it here and say that he is going to somehow turn everybody playing their video games into dolls.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes, yes.
So we move on to Darkwing Tower. For some reason, Darkwing already has the Mr. Mandelbaum doll, and he's inspecting it under a magnifying glass, and he's quickly deduced that Mr. Mandelbaum is, in fact, a toy, which I think is a little too competent for DW, honestly.
Yeah, I guess we don't really know how he got to this point, though, so it could have been, it's like 3 months and 5 days later, and he finally is like, wait a second, this isn't his doll. It is him as a doll. Isn't he a doll?
There is a little thing at the top that says later, ... So it is a vague timeline.
Open-ended.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he goes on his long exposition, because these comics really love the exposition. Ever since he hit the streets again, Quackerjack has been more and more ruthless, stooping to lows we've never seen him stoop to before. That security footage of him taking out that crime bot was disturbing enough, and the way he treated his former ally Megavolt was worse. With someone that sinister having access to this type of terrifying toy, tinkering everyone is at risk. Simple by-the-book heroics won't cut it this time. I wonder if my St. Canard crime files list anyone close to him we could question about his current whereabouts. And then Launchpad comes in and is like, gee, DW, I'm not sure. Seems to me Quackerjack spends most of his time talking to that creepy little doll of his.
Oh my god, is Terrence McGovern here right now? That was beautiful.
I was gonna add like a stupid "duh" at the end and decided I was being too unkind to Launchpad.
Aw, he's used to it. So just remind me now, that throwaway thing about Megavolt made me think of it. So the last time we did see the four, they were dropped out of a trap door in Taurus Bulba's inexplicable floating, whatchamacallit, blender fortress.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're referring to, specifically with Megavolt, I think that was when he used Megavolt as a battery for his jet. Or there was a point in time where he plugged Megavolt in and used him as a battery.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was something specific or that's just a vague thing that they're like, oh, and he's been doing other bad stuff we're not going to elaborate on.
Just very
Lord,
bad
call me.
things. And then Darkwing basically comes to the conclusion. He's like, oh, what about that doll that he's always talking to? He lost the original one a while ago. If we could get our hands on it, like he's basically thinking that maybe if they get Mr. Banana Brain and bring him to Quackerjack, it'll get him to, I don't know. I guess they want to lure him out, essentially. But he can't remember the name of the doll. So he says, Launchpad, get me a pile of fruit and a book on anatomy.
What? Oh, sounds like a date.
Oh my goodness.
So, okay, so he's like, if we get him the OG Mr. Banana Brain, we can basically lure him into having a chat. Or he's just gonna make his own Mr. Banana Brain?
His exact words are, perhaps we can draw the heinous Harlequin out into the open.
So they're just gonna dangle a banana in a little two-piece Bart Simpson getup.
Well,
like on a fishing hook, flop him around. Okay, it's a solid plan. I like it.
Great plan. Well, we get to Darkwing has a table filled with fruit, and it says moments and $56.38 in grocery bills later, which is very expensive for all that fruit.
I mean, Angie, it's one banana. What could it cost? $10?
Well, there's tons of fruit on the table because he can't remember what Mr. Banana Brain was. He can't remember what species of fruit he was.
Oh, I see.
So he has all this fruit across the table, like pineapples and tomatoes. And he's saying, was it Mr. Tomato Eyes? Mr. Cucumber Nose? Mr. Lemon Head? And Launchpad is reading a book on Gray Feather's anatomy and is looking very intelligent and thoughtful about this process.
Well, it does concern his one true love, which is food.
Yes. That is my one true love as well.
You know what? You guys are adorable together. Wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we head on over to Wiffle Boy Entertainment, which I guess is the studio where they make the game. And we see
WBE.
Yeah. And we see this stressed, overworked programmer and his manager standing behind him saying, it's not that your ideas are bad, it's just that they're not right for where we see Wifflecraft going this quarter. And the guy's just like, uh-huh. Anyways, a massive crate arrives in the center of the studio, and it says, to Wiffle Boy Entertainment from Admirer. And then naturally it bursts open, and Quackerjack is inside with the molecular digitizer, and he just starts shooting everybody.
Oh no. The players have become the playthings.
Oh! Let's be real. Based on what I hear about the gaming industry, this is probably the first rest and like the only break that they've had in forever.
Yeah, they get to take a break from crunch and just chill.
Yeah.
Flop around.
Just flop around. So Quackerjack says, creators of World of Wifflecraft, purveyors of pixelated poppycock, I do believe it's playtime.
So this is as he's shooting them, or after he shot them all already and he's just talking to a bunch of stuffed animals? I'd buy either. Either's fine. I'm just curious.
There's still a bunch of employees screaming and running around, panicking, and he's standing on the molecular digitizer while screaming at them.
Okay.
Standard, just Quackerjack things.
You know how you do. Just basically the 5 o'clock stretch at the good old WBE.
Mm-hmm. So we go back to Darkwing. Launchpad's asleep with the book on his head, and Darkwing's like, Mr. Rutabaga forehead? And then a voice off screen shouts, Mr. Banana Brain! And Darkwing's like, yes, that's it. But why did my voice sound like Goslin's for a second? And then we see that Goslin and Honker, clearly the smarter of the group here, figured it out a long time ago. And they also are on the internet, unsupervised, might I add, and are bidding on the original Mr. Banana Brain because it's up on an online auction site. They don't give it a clever name or anything like that. And Honker is at the computer saying, I'm getting outbid.
So is this the banana brain that was sewed back together
Yes.
from its thousands of pieces? It really is?
Yes.
It's all stitched up?
Yeah, it's all stitched up. And here's the part that doesn't make sense to me. The seller is named Sparky99, which implies that it's Megavolt. But he hates the name Sparky. He would never use that as his username.
I mean, who's to say that he created his account? He probably doesn't know how to fix it.
That's maybe Quackerjack made it for him a little while ago. I don't know.
Quackerjack made the name, and the Liquidator is the one that keeps posting all the items. Oh my god, could you imagine an online auction with Liquidator descriptions? It'd be fantastic.
It really would be. So the current bidding for this original Mr. Banana Brain, as it's called, is $85.98 US. And then we get a panel of Darkwing repeatedly bidding over and over again, and then he gets outbid because he clearly is not very good at online auctions. And then they're like...
I'm just glad that Honker got to keep his allowance.
This is my favorite part. So they're like, oh no, somebody else won Mr. Banana Brain and we need to figure out who it is. And Honker immediately doxes her and is like, I found her. Do you want the address?
Damn, Honker really wanted that Mr. Banana Brain. He's like, let's go to her house and kill her. Wait, I mean, talk to her.
Don't mess with Honker. He can apparently just figure out your address and everything just from you bidding on stuff online.
Honker's gonna be a problem when he's a grown-up.
I believe in Honker. I believe in...
Just because he doesn't use his powers for evil doesn't mean he doesn't have them.
This is true. So we're back to Quackerjack at Wiffle Boy HQ, or WBE. He's kidnapped several of the game programmers that he hasn't turned into dolls because he needs them to alter the game code so that the molecular digitizer will turn all the players into toys, like you guessed immediately at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, he threatens to shoot their families, so slow down there, QJ.
Oh, how's he gonna get there? He's just gonna ship himself to all their houses in appropriately labeled crates, one by one.
I guess, he probably would.
He probably would. Someone would catch on eventually, but it would take an embarrassingly a long time for the St. Canardians to catch on.
Oh, St. Canardians. And they're cowering under a couch, under a desk, looking terrified while he threatens their loved ones. And then we go back to Darkwing, who has arrived at the house of the person who bid on the Mr. Banana Brain doll. And he's like, cover me, LP. This could be some vile, villainous cretin that bought Mr. Banana Brain. Who knows what plans they could be concocting for such an icon of crime. And then the door opens, and we see the woman that you mentioned earlier. And she says, oh, goodness, Darkwing Duck, what a pleasant surprise it is to have a celebrity drop by. I'm Claire. Would you like some cake? And Darkwing's like, come on, Launchpad, they have cake. He's won over immediately.
That was easy. He was like, oh, hey, I know exactly who you are, and I'm very much a nice lady. Why don't you come inside and eat? He's like, okay.
That's exactly what happens.
Best friends, instantly.
Also, it's not stated in this comic, but I know for an absolute fact that her full name is Claire Conscience. A little factoid for those of you who want some neat inside background information on the comics.
Right from the Ange's mouth.
they're sitting with Claire in her living room eating cake. I guess
followed through.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty delicious cake. It's pink on the inside, and I guess white on the outside, which feels like the reverse of a cake.
Well, it could be like a strawberry cake with like a cream cheese icing. I could get behind that.
Yeah, I really want some cake. But he says, Claire, we've learned that you've come into possession of an item that is vital to an ongoing investigation. And she says, you mean Mr. Banana Brain? Gee, I'd love to help you, but I'm afraid it's a gift for my boyfriend. And he's like, boyfriend? And then she whips out a photo of herself with Quackerjack, and he's in his full, like, Quackerjack outfit, holding her hand in this cute little portrait. And she says, yeah, my boyfriend, Jackie. Well, ex-boyfriend, it's complicated. And Darkwing's response, which is probably the response of every person on the planet who first read this, was a great big yowza.
That was verbatim what I was about to say. But also I like the implication that it's like Quackerjack and Claire went to, like a JCPenney's portrait place and just were like, we need to take engagement portraits because we're in love.
The best part is she appears to be sitting in the chair in her living room in the photo. So who took the photo? Megavolt?
The cake.
The cake.
The cake was actually sentient and they're eating it now. And she is a monster.
So Darkwing is losing his mind, of course. And he says, how exactly do you get Quackerjack as a boyfriend? Where did you meet? And Claire goes into their little cute flashback, which is kind of funny because he asks how they met. And then she doesn't even proceed to talk about that. She just does like a general flashback talking about his time at Quackworks. And like, she's not even in it at all. She's not in the flashback.
It's like, shut up. I'm going to tell you about this instead. What are you, a cop?
So, yeah, and she says, I know of your past with Jackie. I know how difficult he could be sometimes, but he can be really sweet when he wants to be, said every woman who picks a terrible partner ever in the world.
You don't know him like I do.
Yeah, no kidding. So she says, my plan is to reunite him with the original Mr. Banana Brain in hopes that it'll remind him of better times. And then Darkwing's like, better times? When he was only committing petty larceny, you mean? It's like, that's fair. That's actually a really fair point.
But also, so she met Quackerjack when he was in Quackworks.
They worked together. They were employees there.
After the original Mr. Banana Brain was shredded, right?
I'm not... Let me think about the timeline. Yeah, I guess that would be after, because Negaduck was still loose before the Quackworks stuff, and then he got caught. So, yeah, Mr. Banana Brain was shredded at this point.
How would she know that he was better before? I don't know. I know I'm digging for questions that don't have answers.
That's actually a legit good point, because the whole idea with the first comic, like the first issues that introduced Quackerjack again to us, he was not, he was bonkers. Like, he just wasn't himself, and it was implied that because Negaduck ripped up Mr. Banana Brain, he'd become kind of unhinged. But if this happened after that, why would he be like working at Quackworks and being all happy and stuff?
Yeah. Continuity. I don't know her.
Yes, and I guess technically the first storyline was originally planned by Aaron, and since this story is exclusively Ian Brill, it could just very well be that like he's just making his own rules.
Ian Brill is just stroking our hair and going, shh, shut up.
So she goes into her flashback and she says, when I first met Jackie, he was truly on a brighter path, but that path got diverted. And I won't go into the whole flashback because it's a whole lot of words. I don't like it when comics get a little too talky. I'm kind of the opinion that you should show, not tell. And even in comics, you don't have to put words everywhere. But basically, they put him in the toy department at Quackworks, and he was thriving because he's good with toys, and he had lots of ideas for the toys, and he even made friends with his coworkers. But then she goes on and says, if any of those friends even appeared to get close to anyone from upper management, Jackie immediately resented it. He was insanely paranoid that they were stealing his ideas.
Why would Quackworks have a toy department? Number one. Unless they're like the Amazon of, shell companies, because it was basically just all an operation for Taurus Bulba to get some kid to scream some words, apparently. And yeah, why would they put Quackerjack there? It seems like poking the bear a little bit there.
Yeah. And so Quackerjack became very unhinged because he had all these fresh new ideas, and the higher-ups kept shooting him down. And Quackerjack's like, well, I have better ideas. Why is no one listening to me? And then we get this panel of like him lying with his head down on his desk, staring off into space like he's dead inside, and it just slowly zooms in on him in every panel.
Big mood.
And she's basically a psychologist at this point, giving us the full exposition on his psyche, which is that he would see others get promoted, people who knew how to get ahead in that environment. Let's face it, people who played well with others. Jackie has a great sense of self. That turns bad when he makes everything about himself. He saw others' success as a rejection of him. There was no other place to go. What could he do? The job was just making him angrier and angrier. After a while, he just snapped.
Oh, he's like incel Quackerjack?
I mean...
Is she actually a psychiatrist?
No, I think she was just... No,
okay.
She's not. She's just an employee. That's why I found this kind of funny, because basically what I got out of this is that he obviously, Ian, when he was writing this, he had an idea for what's going on with Quackerjack, and he just had her give us the whole breakdown through her exposition.
Well, tell me a bit about yourself. Well, this is what Quackerjack was doing one day at his desk. He was just seriously staring into space super hard. And, oh yeah, but how did you guys meet? And then he was getting really mad because people kept getting promoted. I was just asking because it would have been a bit of like a Harley Quinn Joker thing if she was his therapist, which would have been, a fun angle. But nope. We said nope. This is just a woman who was hiding in the cube next to him, staring at him all day long, and eventually decided to talk to him.
I think so. And also, despite all of what she's described, she's like, yeah, but he's sweet and nice. But nothing about him in this particular environment. He sounds like the worst coworker ever. Those coworkers who think they know better than everyone else, and they get mad when other people thrive and are doing well and they're not. What part of any of that makes him good boyfriend material?
Well, it's not necessarily a franchise for good boyfriend material. With the exception of Herb Muddlefoot, who I'm sure was an amazing boyfriend.
I'm sure he was too. Meanwhile, the doorbell rings. And she goes, oh, that must be what I won. Which is kind of weird because she would have won it in the auction a few hours earlier. But I guess...
Yeah.
I guess if it's in the city, if it was sold in the city, maybe there's like express delivery. And here you go. Here's some continuity for you. She says, wow, I never saw it up close, only in Jackie's scrapbooks.
Okay. All right. So she was just endlessly trolling eBay for the eventuality of somebody posting, throwing back together Mr. Banana Brain.
Indeed.
Okay.
And then she says, all that anger, that rage, it might have helped him if he wasn't also hurting from his old friend being taken away from him. To be fair, he wasn't taken away. He was just kind of ripped to shreds.
I mean, if Megavolt could sew them back together, anybody can.
It's true. I assume it's Megavolt. We'll never truly know.
I want to believe it was like a group effort. It was like Megavolt would try to sew it together, and then everybody else would have to keep undoing it. It's basically just Bushroot undoing everything that anybody else had done. Probably stuffed with like leaves and Couple worms.
And love.
Well, obviously.
So Darkwing's like, Claire, it's clear to me how much you want to help Quackerjack, but even before Quackworks, he was a dangerous person to be around. Now it's only gotten worse. And then she yanks the doll out of his hands, and she says, superheroes going back and forth is the life Jackie used to know. There's a better way. And then Launchpad is like, guys, there's something going on right now. And, this part kind of, you can tell this is written by someone who isn't familiar with NetSpeak and stuff like that. But Launchpad, I don't even know what he has there, a cell phone or something, but they're listening to the news, and it says someone's made their way inside the offices of World of Whifflecraft and is making some serious demands. And we all know who hates Whiffleboy more than anything, right, Dad? Wait, that's confusing. Oh, you know what?
Goslin?
It's Goslin on the phone.
Oh, okay.
I was like, excuse me, Launchpad? What are you calling Darkwing right now? Okay, that is okay. I'm looking back at this, and this is just poor setup and writing, because Launchpad doesn't even say it's Goslin. He just picks up the phone and he says, I don't mean to interrupt, but you guys got to check this out. And then he holds up the phone, and the panel is just the phone, but you can't see Launchpad, so it looks like he could potentially be talking. So, and there's nothing there to indicate that it's Goslin or that she's talking. So that's why
except for the dad.
Yeah, except for the dad. That just kind of, yeah.
Oh my god, what if it's like Launchpad's illegitimate child that he's just never talked about?
Launchpad.
Cracking the case.
Launchpad, we got questions. So Darkwing deduces pretty quickly that he's got the weapon that turned, what's that again? Aloysius?
Aloysius.
Aloysius. And then this is really random, but Darkwing says, how many people does Whifflecraft employ? And then Launchpad says, I'd say 40, 5,500, give or take a hyphen. And it's like, why would Launchpad know this?
Well, because Launchpad is a gamer. He plays World of Whifflecraft with his son every night. His son's name is Crash Pad.
Good try. Good effort.
Thank you.
So Launchpad's like, Goslin says everyone playing World of Whifflecraft just got a message, OMG, be AFK. AFK. And Darkwing, the boomer, is like, come again? And then Claire's like, oh no, and she starts freaking out and says, they're telling everyone to get away from their keyboards. Whatever Jackie's doing is going to affect everyone playing Whifflecraft. Darkwing's like, you sure that's what that means? And she says, I'm a level 75 orc. I had to keep it a secret from Jackie. This relationship does not sound terribly healthy.
No, it doesn't. So it's BRB AFK?
It was, yeah, it was OMG. BAFK.
Okay. All right.
So, oh my god, be away from keyboard.
From keyboard. Oh, all right.
Which, usually AFK, that's not really the context that it gets used in, but okay.
Well, we'll allow it, because why not? Everybody else is making leaps in this. Who are we to stay stationary?
Yes. So Darkwing says, Claire, I promise you I want to stop Quackerjack the right way. Not just this plan.
By murder. Ask Bud Slut about my philosophy on stopping bad guys.
Slow down there, Dark Warrior. But yeah, he says, not just this plan, but to end this bitter streak he's on. You've inspired me. And she reluctantly hands over the Mr. Banana Brain doll. And she says, save the world, Darkwing. And he says, I'll do better than that. I'll save a man.
Okay.
So we're coming to the end of this comic issue, thing, story. Because it was only 24 pages, which I'm starting to feel relieved about because, boy howdy. So Quackerjack is still holding everybody hostage, And one programmer lady is like, "You're a madman." And he says, "Mad, you say? I just have imagination. You've been squeezing it out of people for so long, you probably don't remember what it looks like." And she says, "To be honest, I mostly mean you're mad for asking the servers to be brought here. There's so many, it'd be easier to bring your weapon to them." All right, I forgot to mention earlier, his plan was he kidnapped some of the programmers, he turned the rest of them into dolls, and he wants them to take all the Wiffle Boy physical servers that Wifflecraft is on and bring them to him so that they can code, I don't know, do something to the code so that everybody playing the game will turn into dolls. And she's just like, "Nah, you're kind of stupid. Why don't we just bring the weapon over to the servers?" Bringing logic into this. Get out of here. And then Quackerjack's response is to do that thing that villains do where they grab a woman by the chin and they tilt their chin up while they talk to them dangerously. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I sure do.
And he says...
the close talk of doom.
Yes, and he says, "But this is where things really happen. This modern office space at the forefront of irritating technology, this is where the drama is." And then Darkwing crashes through the window and says, "Couldn't agree more." And then he's got shards of glass in his body, and he's like, "Ooh, I never did that before. Now I know why." And he's like picking glass out of himself.
Oh my god. All right.
And then he says, "I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the noob that spam chats villainy." Oh, Darkwing.
Oh, Darkwing.
And then he says, "I am." And then he whips out Mr. Banana Brain and starts talking through him and says, "Overdressed for the occasion. Why, Quackerjack, remember me?" And Quackerjack's like, "What?" And the code people who are hiding under the desk are like, this guy is the one who's going to save us. So Darkwing's talking through Mr. Banana Brain to Quackerjack, who has absolutely no idea that it's Darkwing. And Quackerjack says, "Mr. Banana Brain, you're all better." Darkwing's like, "Yes, I want you to be better too." Oh my god, that's too annoying. I can't use that voice.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay, hang on.
Does he say, "Oh, you sound different" or anything? Do we get one of those?
No.
Oh, shucks.
But that's okay. I do want to imagine that this is Darkwing speaking in his perfect Mr. Banana Brain voice, saying, "Yes,
of course.
I want you to be better too. Why do you have to be so much meaner these days? What about the good, clean fun we used to have?" And then Mr. Banana Brain holds up Banana Brain the Third in his hands and kind of looks at it. And then he looks back at the old OG Mr. BB. And then all of a sudden, the bellhops, because for some reason there's bellhops here, roll in the servers.
Okay.
I mean, I assume they're bellhops. They're wearing bellhop outfits.
Those fancy tech companies, you can't ever take anything for granted.
Yeah, and they're like, "Here's your server." And then Quackerjack grabs Mr. Banana Brain and slams him on the ground. He says, "Your way of thinking doesn't work in today's time, Grandpa Banana Brain. You've got to have a killer instinct if you want to franchise."
Did he call him Grandpa?
Yeah, he called him Grandpa Banana Brain.
So there you go. So he is the senior most banana brains.
There you go.
Okay, the lineage lives on.
And now he seems to have acknowledged that Darkwing is here because he says, "As for you, dim bulb dork, let me show you what Quackerjack toys do that other toys just don't." And then he whistles and a bunch of the dolls of the people attack Darkwing and start, the usual ripping him to shreds kind of thing.
No, as one does.
And now this is where things kind of, first time I saw this, I was like, okay, this is kind of stupid. But then I realized, to be fair, this is actually kind of in line with the sort of thing that would probably happen in the cartoon. So maybe it's not all that unlikely and weird. But basically, Mr. Banana Brain and Mr. BB the Third are thrown onto the ground, and they're mixed up in the wires of the molecular digitizer. Darkwing has been strapped to, or is being held down on a table by these two tiny little doll people, which I don't know why he can't just fling them off, but he can't. The wires zap both the Mr. Banana Brains, and they turn into giant, actual, sentient dolls. They're
People size?
stegmut comic guy, but bigger slightly size.
Oh.
Actually,
Okay.
yeah, no, they're much bigger than that. Like, size relations, what am I saying here? But they're big.
Gotcha.
And they're sentient, but they're not actual bananas. They're still dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And Grandpa BB says, "Quackerjack, old pal, why do you throw me aside like a pile of rags? Don't you miss how things used to be?" And then BB the third says, "Never mind, he's clearance aisle material." And then Mr. BB's like, "You want to say that again, bitch?" He doesn't actually say that, but he
He should.
he says, "You want to say that again, rookie?" And he punches him. And he says, "Rookie, I'm the new blood around here." Well, yeah, that's what rookie
Literally.
means.
Yeah.
So Mr. BB the third picks up Quackerjack like he's a doll, and he's like, "Isn't that right, Quackerjack? That's right. These days you got to play rough with your toys." And Quackerjack's like, And then there's a tug of war between the two bananas. They're both each have one of Quackerjack's arms, and they're stretching him like he's a Stretch Armstrong doll from the 80s.
And his dog Fetch.
Oh, did he have a dog?
He sure did.
I didn't know
He
that.
sure did. It was a little dachshund looking thing. I loved him.
That would make sense, because if it's a wiener dog, it'd be kind of long, and then you could stretch it even longer.
Mm-hmm. I did not care for Flex Armstrong, but I would have Fetch Armstrong, the little dog thing. I thought he was great.
That sounds wonderful.
Welcome to We Remember the 90s Corner.
They're pulling back and forth, and Mr. BB number 3 says, "I think he'll agree that being hard-edged is an idea that's just a little more ripe." And then Quackerjack screams for help, and Darkwing, I guess, has finally fought off these two tiny little dolls, and he says, "Hold on, believe it or not, I'm coming to save you."
Believe it or not, I'm coming to save you. All right.
And
It
so
is Darkwing.
Darkwing jumps underneath Mr. Darkwing dives into the scene. He grabs the molecular digitizer. He shoots the BBs. They both turn back into dolls. And Darkwing walks outside and says, "Quackerjack, I saved your life. It's time to change everything back. Do it for Claire." And then he looks around and there's nobody around. He's like, and he's gone.
I saved your life.
And so we come to the last page of this story. First, we see Launchpad and Darkwing are trying to turn back all the employees who are dolls. Launchpad says, "So you just jiggle the one switch to turn toys back into people, right?" And Darkwing says, "Right." And Launchpad says, "Good, because I want to tell Mr. Mandelbaum how much I love his creation. It would be hard to do that when his ears are cloth." I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we get some what do you call it? Like when it's the narrator text where a person is talking, but they're not in the scene, and you get like the little blocks of text.
Narration's fine. I gotcha.
Narration. Okay.
Exposition or whatever.
So we see Quackerjack at Claire's doorstep, but we see the conversation between Launchpad and Darkwing. So Launchpad says, "So DW, if you do catch up to Quackerjack, what would you say to him?" And Darkwing says, "I've been thinking about that one real hard. I'd say you've always wanted your brand to be the biggest and best. Okay, I get that. Believe me, more than you think I do. But when you only use a mallet to solve your problems, all you see are nails. You become a toy to your own anger. That sort of thinking can't continue. Not when there are people like her out there thinking about you." Which is a little, I don't know, that seems a little too insightful for Darkwing.
Yeah. Yeah.
In general, he was very not empathetic to his villains whatsoever.
No, not even the ones that kind of deserved it.
So, Quackerjack busts out a miniature version of the molecular digitizer. It's like hand-sized, and he sighs. And then we see Claire inside her house, and she's looking at the door, and something's happening outside. A laser went off. She opens the door, and she goes, "Oh!" And on the front step is the Quackerjack doll. And there's a little note with it that says, "This is the best I'll ever be, Jackie."
Okay. best I'll ever be. Okay.
That's just how it
So-
ends. That's it.
That's the end? Okay. So it's just kind of like you could get yourself a boyfriend at Build-A-Bear these days.
He shoots
Yeah.
himself and turns himself into a doll, and he's like, I'm better off as a doll because that's the best I can do.
I don't. What brought him to this point, just being tug of war by two banana brains, and then he's just like, you know what? I just can't do it anymore.
Yes, essentially.
He just stops putting whoopee cushions on chairs, and what's even the point of life? And what do you do with that? What does she do with that now? She just like, oh, here's a toy of my ex-boyfriend. Let me put it in my sock drawer. Where do you keep a toy if it's possibly sentient or at least aware toy of your boyfriend?
Yeah, it never really says if they're sentient, because the ones that attack Darkwing came alive at Quackerjack's command. So I don't know if they're conscious or if they're trapped there and they can't do anything, but I don't know what to tell you, man. It's a downer.
It is a downer. You know, there's also a downer. Fetch Armstrong is not as cute as I remembered him being. I put some pictures in the chat for you.
I'm sorry to hear that. Let me take a peek.
He's got weird big human teeth.
He's horrifying. He's like those Photoshop images of a dog smiling but with human teeth.
He is, but you can stretch him.
I don't like that.
Well, apart like a pretzel. Like a mozzarella stick with a smile.
Oh, no. Not okay.
Oh, yeah. It's a night of disappointment for everybody. And also, Claire is like, I'm really glad I dumped all this money into that banana brain doll. My boyfriend's just effectively...
She didn't even get the doll back, I guess.
No, he did for a brief moment, and then he threw it on the ground.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. This whole story was very, it got a mixed response when it first released, because it's definitely meant to be more of a insightful, serious, looking into the psychology of a supervillain and his motivations and making him more sympathetic by showing how he has a relationship with a regular citizen and stuff like that. But a lot of people, well, I'm just going to come right out and say it. A lot of people didn't like it because they gave Quackerjack a girlfriend. And I gotta say, giving romantic interests to characters from a TV show that has been long since established is a risky move, because Darkwing Duck at this point, when this was released, what did I say, 2010? So it was, 20-something years old at that point?
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a long time for fans to get attached to how the characters were in a cartoon. And, they develop their own ideas for the relationships of the characters. A lot of people ship him with Megavolt. They call it Quackervolt. Toys need batteries, etc., etc. So to what is, quote unquote, a new canon story that brings in a love interest for him, a lot of people, that doesn't sit well with them.
I just think it's a very odd choice for a story in general. We don't even know what they were like together, other than one picture where they seem to be happy. It's just a weird story. It's just okay, Quackerjack. It was almost like she didn't need to be in it. It could have been anybody else. It could have been a friend that he made at work that wasn't, romantic. It just seemed like the romantic thing was supposed to be shocking. Oh my God, Quackerjack has a girlfriend. But it didn't really add anything because we didn't really get to know her as a character. She was just a plot device.
Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of critics of this story said, which I think is a fair assessment, but it kind of split into two factions. There was the people who don't like Claire, or at the very least, they just don't like her role in this story. And there are the people who, in response to that, became very attached to her and built her up as a character in fan work. And, you know, they're quite supportive of the fact that this new character was introduced. So you get a little bit of like, it was a very mixed response, and I can see why it was. I remember when I first read this, like, I didn't have a whole lot to think about. Like, I remember reading it, and all I could think at the time was, I know several people who are going to hate this, was my first thought when I read it. But I'm not, like, I like Quackerjack. I think he's a fantastic villain, but I'm not super attached to him. So this story wasn't like, you know, it didn't enrage me or anything. But reading it to you now and, you know, telling you like what she's saying, it does sound kind of like a person who's in a really unhealthy relationship, and they're like, oh, but he's so sweet. He can be really sweet with me sometimes. And then later she's like, I can't even tell him that I play video games. I have to hide that from him because he hates video games so much. And then also, you know, she's like, he's so sweet, and then proceeds to go on about how he's paranoid and angry and, you know, can't stand it when other people succeed. I'm like, this doesn't sound very good at all.
Yeah, and I don't really know. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for people to get very upset about things as far as fandom goes. But she's kind of just like a blank slate. Like, what is the point of being upset with this character? Because she's basically just a paper doll. It's just like, she's just here. Here's the one purpose that I have. I bought a doll on eBay, and Darkwing is learning about what happened to Quackerjack through me. I don't know. I how did he survive falling out of the sky? That's what I want to know.
Well,
and
I
like,
think
when did they date? Like, were they date?
They were
dating when he was at Quackworks?
Yeah, like she says they worked together at Quackworks, or they met through Quackworks, because everybody in the city was essentially an employee there at that point in time. But when she goes into the flashback, it doesn't show her at all. It's just him at work, which is just funny because Darkwing's like, how did you two meet? Well,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. But I will tell you, I think you will enjoy the untimely terror of the time turtle.
Did you see my time turtle?
No, let me take a peek. Let me open this up. Aw, he's so cute. He's got a little watch around his neck, a little stopwatch or a pocket watch there, and he's got a little hat on his head. Oh, you made his shell clocks.
I did.
I love it. And I love him so much.
Turtle time.
It's so cute.
That's my time turtle. And yeah, I'll be sure to rewrite this comic if it's not up to my time turtle standards.
I will. I'm putting this image as the cover for this podcast episode. It's just going to be this.
It should just be the new cover for the podcast.
It's turtle time. Oh,
it's turtle time.
I love him. That's beautiful, kitty. True art.
Thank you.
So this story, like I said, it's only 8 pages long. It has time travel in it, as you might guess from the title. So it can be a little confusing at first when I go through it, but it all comes together. So, as I said, this was written by Tad, and because it's written by Tad, I think it's, of all the comics that released from Boom Studios and whatnot, I think this is the one that feels most authentic to the show, because it was written by the guy who, you know, created it and wrote episodes for it. So it's very delightful. So we start off, Goslin is standing in a jungle, and she's wearing one of those, what do you call them, like a cobra, like Jafar has the cobra staff. She's got a little cobra helmet and a cobra staff, and she says to Darkwing, who is currently being strangled to death by an anaconda, "Meet my demands, or you're snake kibble, you Darkwing dud. I'm talking a full-featured Webtendo Z-Box game system with 3D goggles and 13 Skull Crusher speakers." And Darkwing says, "I'll get you a giant robot, install a pizza oven in your room, Anything, just call off your snake. And she says, first, we discuss bedtimes. And then it turns out that she's fantasizing, like this isn't real. It's just a daydream. And Drake Mallard comes up behind her and he says, not in this or any other lifetime. They're in a pet store, we find out, when we realize she's not in the jungle.
Oh, she's just fantasizing about how if she had a snake, if she could use it to torture her father.
Exactly.
Who hasn't?
So she says, Dad, you promised you'd let me pick out a pet. And he said, yeah, a pet, not a threat to life and limb. This place is like a casting call for the Carnivore Channel. And then we see that she was standing right next to the snake tank. There's some parrots. And there's a bunch of cameos in the background, like the spider from James and the Giant Peach. I see the 2 eels from The Little Mermaid. I think that's one of the dinosaurs for The Land Before Time, maybe? Oh, no, that's Joanna, egg stealer from Rescuers Down Under, I think. Joanna, who don't eat the eggs. So Goslin, they're arguing because she wants to pick out a pet, and of course her choices are not to Drake's standards. She says, I want a real pet, not something you find on spoiled milk. And he says, hey, there's nothing wrong with a slime mold companion. I have fond memories of my childhood fungoid friend. He loved rotten fruit frappes. Sometimes I couldn't tell where the frappe ended and Freddy and then he gets cut off. And it's in the next panel, 2 little crocodiles or alligators have latched on to Goslin's pigtails and he's trying to pull them off. And he says, let go or you land in the discount luggage department. And then, I don't know, I can hear this in his voice. He says, Goslin, find something softer and fuzzier. And then Goslin looks over at a tank of baby ducklings, and there's a duckling that has like 2 little things on its head that look like her pigtails, and it looks like a duck version of her, essentially. She looks at it, she says, okay, this is just creeping me out. They're walking down the aisle looking at the animals, and Drake says, there has to be something that is both safe for you and from you. And Goslin says, maybe a wolf, half bear, half wolf, as long as I can ride it. And then Drake says, how about a turtle? It has built-in armor. And he picks up the turtle, and it looks like a regular turtle. Nothing particularly tiny about it. And Goslin's kind of like looking at it. But before he can really do anything else, this random man appears, and he says, unhand that reptile, it's mine. And Drake's like, back off, buddy, that's my daughter's turtle. And the guy is like, hand it over, I saw it first. And Drake's like, I didn't see your name on it. Goslin turns over the turtle, and on its belly it says, Pack the Bungee. And Goslin's like, not unless his name is Pack the Bungee. That's weird. And then, you know, the Thanos, when he snaps his fingers and everyone disintegrates. She starts disintegrating, and she goes, I'm disintegrating, cool beans.
On brand.
It really is. So we find out that she's holding the turtle, she's been sent forward to the future. So she's now in a clock tower, and Darkwing Duck...
a single Oompa, and she's in a different timeline.
She sure is. So she's in a clock tower. Darkwing Duck is fighting with a villain who is dressed like a giant clock, like his face is a clock with a bill and a beard. And he says, and that's a future with no time for crime. I'm here to clean your clock, Chrono Duck. Chrono Duck is a time-related villain. Also, he's holding the time turtle as well, and a little time turner. So Chrono Duck disintegrates because he's holding the turtle, and he says, my clock is running fine, but your time is running out. And Darkwing runs to hit him. He disintegrates, so Darkwing falls over the edge of, like, I don't know, they're in a clock tower, like on like a catwalk kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he falls over the edge and dies.
Oh, R.I.P.
Rip. So Goslin's holding her time turtle, and she says, where are we? And why does this seem like page 7 action?
So she saw him fall off the side?
Yeah, she sees him fall, and she goes, Dad! And then
okay.
And then she disintegrates again and goes back to the present time in the pet store. And she's like, Dad? And the guy from earlier, who is obviously Chrono Duck, but without his costume, is like, I'll take that, thank you. And he snatches the turtle out of her hands. And he says, only this turtle is slow enough to crawl between seconds and into the chronoplasm of time. And Darkwing reappears and says, great, the slower you are, the easier you are to catch. And Chrono Duck says, fool, I can use the turtle's chronoplasm to travel through time. And Darkwing goes to swing and punch him. He disintegrates, and now he's behind Darkwing, and he says, I just went home, changed clothes, and fixed myself a pastrami sandwich. I am Chrono Duck, master of time and clockery. And Darkwing says, your crime spree is over before it started. And then Chrono Duck says, hardly. I'm already stealing the hourglass diamond because I left an hour ago. And you've already failed to stop me. And then he disintegrates again. So Darkwing's like, that I'll get ahead of you. There's only one hideout for a time-obsessed villain, the St. Canard clock tower. And then Goslin clings to his leg. And he's like, Goslin, what are you doing? There's a clock-crazy criminal to catch. And she says, you can't chase him, Dad. It's too dangerous. Because she saw in the future that he fell to his death. So
she's just got to put a trampoline at the bottom of the clock tower. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So they're driving in the rat catcher, and Darkwing says, you've heard my catchphrase, right? And Goslin says, can't you be undangerous just this once? And Darkwing says, there's the clock tower. I can drop down from the building next to it and catch Chrono Duck by surprise. And Goslin's still going on. She's saying, I saw the future. It doesn't end well. And Darkwing Duck says, Darkwing Duck makes his own future.
Bum, 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 bum.
So now we're back high atop the St.
He didn't finish the sentence, though. It's like he makes his own future really, like, a living nightmare.
It's true. So we're back to where Goslin had originally traveled to. Page 7 action, as she said. And he's facing off against Chrono Duck this time, and the same thing happens again. Chrono Duck disintegrates. Darkwing falls over, but this time Goslin says, hope I understood the turtle. And she throws a bungee rope, like a bungee cord. And so he falls, and the rope wraps around his foot. And she says, please, not again. And then how do I explain this visually? It stops him, but then it swings him around to the other side of the catwalk, so he ends up behind Chrono Duck. And Chrono Duck's still disintegrating. And he says, no one can surprise the master of time. And Goslin says, have you asked your turtle? And he turns over the turtle, and it says on its tummy, Sproing. And he says, Sproing? That makes no sense. And then Darkwing, Sproing, jumps up behind him and kicks the crap out of him. And then Chrono Duck drops the turtle. Darkwing says, the only time you'll be doing is behind bars. Quick thinking with that bungee cord, Goslin. And then Goslin says, yeah, back in a sec. I have to leave myself a note. So she's the one who originally wrote on the turtle to bring the bungee cord.
Oh, I thought the turtle was helping her out.
Well, the turtle's kind of sentient. Like when he's holding it and it says Sproing on his tummy, the turtle's looking very self-righteous. Like, haha. He's got like his little turtle hands on his hips. Yeah, he's like, ha. He's like, take that. So we get to the final panel, and Drake's back in the Mallard household, and he's pondering the space continuum. And you know that, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with, like, the Pepe Silva scene? Where he's got, like, all the papers and stuff. Basically, Darkwing's doing that. And he's trying to do all these, like, calculations. And he's like, but if I didn't die in the first place, you wouldn't have left yourself a note. But if you didn't leave a note, I must have died. Does this mean there's a me that's dead? And Goslin's holding a slime mold that has a little studded collar around it. And she says, can't help you, Dad. It's time to walk my fungus. Yeah, I thought that was a cute story.
It's cute. It was the point. Nobody was unnecessarily edgy.
Yeah, just classic Darkwing shenanigans. I guess Goslin technically saw him die, but She seems to be kind of used to that by now, so.
Yeah, I mean, she's seen a lot. She's seen a lot. She's definitely almost died herself, and yeah.
When I first read it, I was a little confused because there was time travel and it goes back and forth, but I read it over a second time and I was like, okay, yeah, that totally makes sense.
See pictures of this turtle.
Okay,
see how he
me
compares.
Let me send you a picture of the turtle. Yours, I like your design. It is very beautiful.
Thank you.
I picked the self-righteous imagery. He just looks like a regular turtle.
He does.
Chrono Duck is also technically the first supervillain that Tad Stones has created, like the first new one since the series. So that's kind of neat.
Oh, he's just got a literal clock face.
Yeah. And there's one specific. Also, every single time I read this comic, he looks like my psychiatrist. And I can't not unsee that. He's like the Duckverse version of my doctor.
There you go. It's not at all what I was expecting him to look like. And I see Lucifer back there, and one jazz cat from the Aristocats, and the Siamese cats from Lady and the Tramp.
All kinds of delightful cameos.
I do like that little chameleon guy in his little terrarium. He looks very concerned.
Here's Gosling's slime mold pet.
Oh, he's cute.
I guess, I don't know what happened to the time turtle after that. I don't know if they put him back into the pet store or, I feel like that turtle is probably dangerous, so maybe they handed him over to Shush or something.
He's his own turtle now.
He's
owned by no one.
That's it, though. That's the annual. So do you have any...
It was turtle timed.
It was turtle time. Do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. This was not as upsetting as the other ones so far. Yeah, there just seemed to be it's like a double-edged sword, because it's like Darkwing was in a show that had a super lot of female characters, as we've discussed, but I don't think any of the ones that have been introduced in the comics so far have done anything to enrich the cast of characters. Claire seems like she could have been okay, but they just really didn't do anything with her other than have her be like the nice girl that gives the exposition. I don't know. I feel like Crackerjack, I don't know. Of course, I'm not looking at it. I'm not reading it, so I don't really know. It just doesn't seem very fun in these comics. It's just like they're leaning into that like crazy Joker thing, which is effective when it's done right, but it just seems like more like, oh, he's so menacing and crazy and not like goofy. Any of it, like even the Joker, when they do that with him, I don't like him as much as like the Mark Hamill Batman the Animated Series Joker, who's just, out of his mind and enjoying his life.
I'm gonna send you. Hang on. I'll send you a couple pictures so you can actually see what these characters look like. I feel like my descriptions probably don't match up to what you're seeing mentally in your head, but that's okay. I really like the art style.
All right, because it's a different. This is a very Pepe Silvia picture here of Drake. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's just very cute.
And you can see what Clara looks like in that imagery.
Yeah.
I'll show you the banana brain.
I don't really see it as much in the Claire story, but there's the Darkwing comics are very blue, if that makes any sense.
Like they have a bluish hue to them?
Yeah, like I don't know. It's like I don't know why. It's like for me, it just seems like everything that's going on in these comics, these panels that I've seen, is all very like blue, and it should be more colorful. Like these are very colorful.
Yeah, you can see that he was trying to be metaphorical, like hard and edgy, sharp, spiky Mr. Banana Brain versus the soft, playful, old school Mr. Banana Brain. And I don't know. I find they try to do that a lot in the story. We talked about that in Foul Disposition a while back, where Darkwing was trying to balance his home life, his regular like citizen life with his crime fighting life, and they did that whole thing where he was like half Darkwing and half Drake Mallard, and he pulled himself out of the closet.
Yes. Oh my god, I forgot about that. Oh man. Yeah, a little too heavy-handed, huh?
But yeah, that is pretty much the annual.
Okay.
We did it, and it's only been an hour and 30 minutes. Look at us.
Look at that. Look at us. And you did wonderful voices. Thank you for telling me all about these and rewriting the time turtle so that he has his own adventures. And we'll have a tiny little top hat.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. So what's up next?
I think we're going to do fan mail next week.
Okay.
Or should I say reader mail? I feel like fan mail is a little too egotistical of me. We have.
Well, if we print it out and fold it up, then we can fan ourselves with it.
All right, I'll take that.
All right, yeah. All right. So yeah, I'll print them out and mail them to you, and then we can fan ourselves with mail. What's the next thing that's the comics?
The next arc is the what do you call it? Voter. What's the word? Campaign.
Voter. I think that's right. I think that's what we call it.
It's Campaign Carnage, which is not any better than any of the other stories. I don't know. Did you want to do that immediately, or did you want to take a break with something else? Like, I want to make sure it's not too unbalanced.
No, I'm good to keep going. I mean, this was a nice reprieve from the usual levels of things. So
we'll just rip that Band-Aid right off.
Yeah, so
keep
we'll
going.
do some listener mail next time, and then we can barrel ahead full of regret.
Sounds like a plan.
Woo! And then after that, I think is probably your favorite one, which is the crossover one.
I think it is. Yeah, I think. I'm kind of blanking, but yeah, I want to say the crossover comes after that.
And then maybe possibly I'll get to be enraged over the fate of Gizmo Duck. But we'll see in a few episodes, friends. But until then, crime doesn't sleep, and neither do we. Why don't you bring us out with a little bit of Angie Banana Brain?
I don't know, man.
Perfect.